This is a Film Stories original podcast.
Fargo, the new virtual assistant from Wells Fargo, makes banking faster and easier. Like this.
Fargo, what's my checking account routing number?
And this.
Fargo, turn off my debit card.
And this.
Fargo, what did I spend on groceries last month?
And that's just the beginning. Do you, Fargo? You can. In the Wells Fargo mobile app. Learn more at wellsfargo.com/getfargo.
Terms and conditions apply. Your mobile carrier's availability and message and data rates may apply. Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.
We made this.
Welcome to the X-Cast. The truth is in here. I'm your host, Sarah Blair, and today I'd like to welcome back X-Cast regular and host of the Tales We Tell podcast, Clara Cook. Hi, Clara.
Hi, Sarah. How are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm good.
Excellent. Today we're chatting about Chinga, the 10th episode of Season 5, which originally aired on February 8th, 1998. So, in this episode, Scully's on vacation in Maine, but she can't seem to escape the X-Files, no matter what. This episode was penned by special guest writer Stephen King and directed by Kim Manners, and it will leave you singing the Hokey Pokey till you die. So, Clara, did you feel like this episode was more like a Stephen King thing or more X-Files, or kind of the right blend of both?
So I really found a lot of Stephen King influences in the episode. So it does seem very much like it's written by Stephen King, but at the same time it still has a lot of the X-Files sort of typical Monster of the Week themes as well. I think that Stephen King writing it, I mean, obviously I have great respect for Stephen King, but I think there's a sort of problem with the name Stephen King being associated with the episode, because it raises people's expectations really, really high. So they're expecting something truly Stephen King-ish. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
And then when they get an X-Files episode that's maybe got some of the sort of stereotypical tropes of Monster of the Week X-Files things, then they are a little bit disappointed. So that seemed to be the general consensus when I looked on IMDb.
That makes sense.
Yeah. That people were like, this isn't fulfilling the potential that Stephen King has in his stories. But I felt like I was like, well, that's because it's not a Stephen King story, really.
Yeah. Well, I know that Chris Carter rewrote most of it because he got the script from Stephen King, and then he rewrote it to be X-Files. Because I think in an interview or somewhere he said that the episode, he didn't quite capture Mulder and Scully's voice the way Chris Carter would have liked, which makes sense because, I mean, I know Chris Carter did that a lot with other writers, and it gives that consistency throughout the X-Files, and I think that's why there can be so many writers for the show, but it still has that consistent voice to it, and that happens a lot on all shows, so, I mean, it makes sense. But I can understand why people would say that.
I guess Chris Carter knows his own characters really well, doesn't he? So, he knows Mulder and Scully really well, so he's the most qualified person to write their voices, I suppose. I felt like the doll was definitely a Stephen King story.
Yeah. And it's not exactly the first time. Yeah, it's not like the first time a scary doll has been used in any kind of a scary horror thing. So, the concept of a creepy doll is not quite original, but it does have that Stephen King spin. I think, the location and the small town Maine, all that really is what gave it that Stephen King signature, I think. So that really showed through. Yeah. Yeah,
and the sheriff as well felt like a Stephen King character to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So on IMDb, this episode got a 7.8 out of 2,709 votes at the time of this recording. Do you feel like that's about accurate? Is that what you would place it?
No, actually, I would go higher.
Yeah?
I would probably be like about like an 8.5. Yeah. I think it's got room for improvement, but I do think it's got all the key aspects of a Monster of the Week story. And I think the dialogue between Mulder and Scully raises it for me, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree with that. I definitely appreciate the Mulder and Scully rapport. I think a 7.8 is about accurate for me, actually. That's probably where I'd put it. And it's season 5, so all the episodes are really high. There's nothing below a 7.2, I think, in the whole season. There's no 6s, nothing below 7. So, and then Misogyny is a 7.2, and then Kill Switch, the episode after it, is an 8.1. And then this is episode 10, so it's smack in the middle of a 20-episode season. You know, as far as the season goes, this is kind of the mid-season, I guess, I don't want to say slump, because it's still so high. You know, the bar is, like, really high for season 5. These episodes are great. But compared to, you know, some of the other episodes in season 5, it's a little bit lower, on the lower end. But, you know, this one's still 7.8. It's pretty high, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if it had come in a different season, maybe it would have got a higher rating. But if it's being compared to all these other really highly rated episodes, maybe it's harder to judge it on its own merits, if that makes sense.
Do you feel like it fits in the tone with season 5? I think it does. I don't think I could. I can't see this episode being in, you know, anything before 5, maybe 6. But
yeah, I think it does fit in the tone of season 5. And I think the humour in it fits in with season 5. Season 4 feels like a much more serious season to me because of all the stuff that happens. So I feel like it would seem out of place and odd in season 4. And season 6, season 6 is a really weird season.
It is, yeah.
It might fit in season 6, I don't know.
Yeah, I can see it in 6, I think, but definitely not before. Yeah, I think it came at just the right time, so it's good. Why don't we head in and dig into the breakdown? You want to?
Yes, definitely.
All right.
I want to see that doll.
Let's do this. Okay, so in the teaser, we've got this grocery store, mom with her kid, and her kid's getting grouchy, and I know that feeling so well. Let's be real about that. As a mom, I try to do everything I can to not take my kids to the grocery store because they get grouchy, and you just want to, it's like, here, take anything. I will give you anything you want. Just be quiet so that we can get the shopping done and get out of here. And this poor mom, well, she's got a lot more to deal with than just a fussy kid. This kid has a creepy doll with her. and the kid's like, I want to go, I'm ready to go. And you're like, I get it. She's like, I understand. And you can see she's like totally frazzled.
Yeah, but she's ready to go as soon as they get in the store. It's like they've been in the store for like a couple of minutes, and then the little girl's like, Mommy.
She's like, she doesn't want to do this. Yeah. I mean, I don't blame her, honestly. I hate going to the grocery store with or without kids. I don't ever want to go to the grocery store. But, you know, and when they're getting out of the car, she's like, it'll just take a minute. She knows what's coming. She's like, it'll just take a minute. We just have to get, but it's like, you've got to get some groceries. You got to do this. Like, yeah. So I did feel sorry for the mom in this teaser, but, man, creepy dolls. That's like the ultimate temper tantrum. Like, that's not kicking and screaming on the floor, which I have had to deal with in the grocery store. Like, I know I have had to pick my kid up and get her out. Like, just, you know, it's like, we got to get out of here. Leave the groceries in the cart. Just get out.
It's like a supernatural tantrum.
Yeah. And then, I mean, how do you, like, creepy dolls, immediately, that freaks me out. I can't deal with creepy dolls. No, thank you. And creepy kids and creepy dolls are like, I can't. It's like my ultimate scary episode because it's got both. Yeah, did you feel like it was an effective trailer, right? Like everybody just starts going nuts and clawing themselves, and it's scary.
I think it's a great teaser. I think the mother's anxiety, I think the loud kind of clanging music really adds to the anxiety as well. Every time she kind of goes down an aisle, there's like another bit of music that makes the whole thing really sort of tense and anxiety producing. Polly's sullen expression, her daughter Polly, like the little girl's sort of like angry expression, you know, it's just building, you know, she's going to be like, I want to go home now.
Yeah.
The guy stabbing himself in the face, that was really horrible. And what I like about the X-Files is they take a really sort of kind of non-threatening place, like a grocery store, where we've all been, and they sort of a normal place, and they turn it on its head, they twist it. And they do that with lots of stuff, don't they? Like, you know, like a little house with a white picket fence, and then they put this incestuous cannibal family in it or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're doing that in this episode with the grocery store. They're taking a frozen food aisle and they're sticking a vision of a dead man in it. You know, a normal grocery store, and everyone's clawing their eyes out. It's actually really, really effective. You know, I mean, I think after seeing that the next day, if you go to the grocery store, you would be thinking about it. And that's what the X-Files does. It takes
raising my hand right now, yes.
And makes it unfamiliar.
This is not one of the episodes that I watch often, to be honest, for this reason. But you're right. It's interesting because I actually, my friend Karen let me take a look at the original script that Stephen King wrote, and then before it was changed a little bit. And in the teaser, Scully is actually in the grocery store, and she gets affected by this phenomenon. So she starts hitting herself and like beats on herself and gets some scratches, and you know. So I thought that was interesting because I'm glad that they made the change that she wasn't there, because I can't envision her being part of this phenomenon. I feel like Mulder and Scully typically are sort of outside, you know, looking in, and I'm glad they made that change.
Yeah, if she'd been there, I think the audience would have spent the whole time, like the whole bit of the teaser, worrying about Scully. Is Scully okay? What's Scully doing? Rather than saying, what is it with this girl and her doll? And like, why on earth are these people doing this? And is this connected to the doll, or is it the girl doing this? Does the mother know this was going to happen? That kind of thing. I think that sort of thing is what we kind of want the audience to focus on, rather than what's happening with Scully. I actually like the idea that Scully just stumbles across it. Like, she and Mulder can't get away from the paranormal even when they're on holiday.
Yeah, exactly.
Trust Scully to go to the one town where there's a haunted doll.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. Like, she would have to, you know, be on vacation. I do love that she's got her convertible and Mulder calls her out on it. Because when you're on vacation and you're Scully, you've got to have a convertible. I mean, she like stumbles upon this thing, and so the next thing, she walks into the grocery store and sees all these bloody people, and she kind of like stops. If I were Scully, I would see that, and immediately I'd be like, nope, I'm on vacation, and just turn around and walk the fuck away. Like, I'm getting out of here. Nope, I don't want to know. This is no. But, you know, being a doctor, she has to, you know, if she sees somebody injured, she's going to go investigate. She has to. And I did find that was very interesting. Out of all the times in the X-Files when she could possibly say, I'm a medical doctor, and have it be completely relevant and necessary, she says, I'm an FBI agent. She doesn't say it. I was waiting for it because I was expecting it. No,
yeah,
she doesn't say it.
They don't need an FBI agent in that scenario. They need a medical doctor. I also like how the store manager comes up to her and just sort of says quite casually, "Yeah, I think the guy in the freezer aisle's dead. I think the guy on the meat counter is dead." Like, he's quite casual about it, you know. I mean, I guess his eyes are really swollen and everything, so, you know, maybe he's in pain or, I don't know, not paying attention to what's going on. But he was like, "Oh yeah, I think he's dead."
He might be in shock.
One of your employees just stabbed himself in his own face with his own knife, and that's your reaction? They're shell shocked, I guess.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a bizarre scene to walk in on for Scully, I think, and then after she kind of like investigates or whatever, then we cut to Mulder, and he's obviously watching porn
at work.
At work at the FBI.
What the hell, Mulder? What the hell?
Government money well spent here. This is what we're
taxpayers'
paying.
money.
Taxpayers' money well spent. And you know, he says it's world's deadliest worms. Yeah. So I did feel like the dialogue in this scene was very awkward. I don't know if it was the way... I was trying to pay attention and figure out if it's the way they were playing it or if it was the dialogue itself. And I felt like it was very expository. Like they were very obviously trying too hard to set this story up very quickly. And having Mulder ask so many questions. Like every other thing he said was a question. And it was, you know, obviously they were trying to set the story up so we could kind of figure out what's going on, because everything that Mulder asks were questions that I, as an audience, you know, member or like a viewer, wanted to know. So, but it was a very obvious way to do it, and it wasn't. I think they could have blended it a little bit better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so he's basically a narrative device, really, in that scene, isn't he? He's the one who is there to ask these questions so we ourselves the audience can find out the answers, as opposed to having, like, I don't know, maybe the sheriff ask questions, which I feel like would have made more sense, or somebody in the town that didn't know what was going on. I feel that Mulder might have some ideas already just because of how crazy he is. The one thing I did love about this scene, though, was Scully listing off the different types of witchcraft and magic, and it's like she knows what she's looking for. She's been with Mulder long enough that she knows all about this stuff. And just the looks of the sheriff and the deputy behind her who were like, what is going on? Who is this woman and what is she talking about? And I thought it was really funny. Coming also in season 5, like, it's this idea that Scully is now completely and utterly, I don't know, completely and utterly educated by Mulder now on all these sort of really weird things. And how more aroused Mulder gets on the phone as she's like, is it, you know, I don't know, like she was saying, is it voodoo? Is it this? Is it that? And he's like,
yeah. You know, it wouldn't have anything to do at all with him watching porn.
But she's also really weary as she's saying it as well.
Yeah.
She's like, it could be this, it could be that. Do you mean this? Do you mean that? Do you mean...
Yeah. Well, I did read that Gillian Anderson had played Scully to, like, she'd gone on a more humorous direction. And then she was told by Chris Carter to back it up and play it more serious. So I wonder if this is one of those scenes, because I felt like she was wanting to be a little bit more sarcastic with it, but it came off a little bit more on the serious side. And I feel like it probably would have worked better if she had played up the sarcasm, at least in this scene.
I also think it would have been a bit more scary if the sheriff, I mean, the deputy seemed alarmed, but if the sheriff and Scully and all the professionals there had seemed a bit more, like, worried or scared. I mean, literally a whole supermarket full of people have been trying to claw their own eyes out, you know? if you compare this to other episodes where people have done things like this, you know, trying to think of another example. Even the one actually with the witches, you know, and everyone's hysterical about witches.
Right.
You know, or even the War of the Copperhashes, which is actually played
Yes.
for comedy effect. People are getting hysterical. I feel like this happens, and then they sort of like police and Scully are a little bit like, oh well, I wonder what it could be.
Yeah.
And I think that would make the whole thing a bit more scary if people seemed more frightened about it.
Right.
But
I
it's
feel
sort of like it's played for laughs, but at the same time it's not. You know.
Yeah.
They need to pick a tone.
Right, exactly. I think that's where the script, the original script versus what the final product was, I feel like there's that dissociation there, because it could have gone one way solidly, and it could have gone another way solidly, but somehow it's kind of muddled in the middle, and it doesn't quite line up and work and flow the way it needs to be completely effective. I think there was a lot of maybe too much switching around in this episode, when if they had just set the direction to go in and stuck with it, it might have been a little bit more effective. Like you said, like War of the Copperphages, it does have a lot of similarities to that. And then another episode that I was thinking of a lot when I was watching this that it reminds me of is Syzygy, where like the whole small town goes crazy.
Yeah.
Or it just, you know, like goes bonkers because of the planetary alignments. But this is not planetary alignments. This is a creepy doll. But like you said, in a town so small where everybody knows everybody and half the town is at the grocery store at the same time clawing their eyes out, like you would think that more people would have been in uproar over this and, you know, gotten out the pitchforks or whatever. But I kind of like that they didn't go in that direction and they kept it more focused on Scully and the Chief Monsant and their kind of investigation on this. I think if it had been more of like a mass town thing, it would have lost focus even further. And I like that it was more intimate with just the smaller focus of these characters. I think it was more effective to be scary that way than, I think it would have been more ridiculously comedic if they had included the whole town with it and everybody had been in an uproar over this horror witch and her witch daughter, you know, like that was crazy.
I like how nobody really suspected the doll for quite a while.
Yeah. Like, how can you... The creepy doll is always the culprit. Come on. Like, let's be real about that. We've got, my uncle had saved this porcelain doll for me to give to my daughter, and I don't know where it came from or anything, but he's like, look at this beautiful doll. Here, this is for your daughter. And I was like, I just wanted to look at it and be like, I don't want that in my house. I don't want that thing in my house. This is creepy. But, you know, he was genuinely thoughtful about it. So we have it here. And then, of course, she dropped it. And now the leg is broken. And
No, it's even worse.
Yeah.
The one-legged doll.
It's just creepy. And, like, every time I walk by the closet where I've got her stashed, I just look and I'm like, I'm really sorry about your foot. Please don't kill me. She's
not forgotten about the foot.
She's like, I can see her judging me for not putting that foot back on. Foot. I don't even know where the foot is now. This is bad. This is bad news. But anyways. So we've got Larry Musser in the next scene. Yay, Larry. We got to meet him. A bunch of the X-Cast friends got to meet him at X-Fest. So that was really fun. He's a super nice dude. And he's, you know, kept in touch with us all and just nice as can be. So he plays Chief Monsant. And this is an interesting scene, I think, because this is what we were talking about before, where it's, you know, it's helping fill us in on the backstory about who Melissa is and all that, but in a more conversational tone, and it's not so telling. It's, you know, I think it's more effective than the conversation with Mulder, where we get kind of this backstory. But also, you know, he's saying, like, Melissa and the dead guy in the grocery store were kind of having this thing, but he's not really clear about it, except he says that it was, you know, Scully asks if it was unrequited, and he says, yeah, he was a fool, because I guess he was married, but he had a crush on Melissa. And it was never really clear on if anything was actually going on with them, or I think he pretty much said, like, she wasn't interested in him. But
yeah, I think Melissa is supposed to be like a small town beauty, isn't she? She's born there, she grows up there, and she's the local pretty girl who marries a local fisherman and then is tragically widowed, and then she's the young, beautiful widow with the small child and no one to take care of her. And I think that's what is supposed to be seen as attractive to the men in the town. And I think you're supposed to think that more than one man, well, we know because the deputy's also interested in her, but I think you're supposed to think that men in the town have always wanted to be with her, and that's another reason why she is, like, judged, which I think is nicely done with the evil nursery school teacher.
yes,
who should never have been a nursery school teacher. She's totally should not be taking care of children. But yeah, so I think that's an example of how the townsfolk judge her, and I think the sheriff makes that point at one, doesn't he? He sort of says, "Well, I just figured it's because she was pretty, and that's why, you know, everybody thought she was a witch." So people are judging her because of how she looks, and because she's a young woman who, you know, is a widow, and
yeah, she's pretty, so she must be a witch.
Yeah,
clear
some jealousy there, isn't there? Which is kind of nicely linked to, like, at one point they link it to the witches of the past, don't they? Where, you know, this idea that a young woman who's just too attractive or too smart or, you know, too desirable is going to eventually end up paying the price for that through no fault of her own. And normally, the easiest way to pay the price for that is to be condemned as a witch. So I thought it was a nice little theme there. It's not really heavily emphasised, but it is, you know, there's some prejudice in the town against Melissa for no good reason other than just that she's a beautiful young woman.
Yeah. It's hard to take anything that old biddy says seriously. Jane the evil child slapping biddy. But she's just horrible. She's just the worst.
Her glasses really drive me mad. I'm like, those glasses are way too big for your face.
It's like, how can we take this awful old woman and make her worse? Let's add these gigantic glasses. Because seriously. But it's hard to take anything she says seriously because, like, she's so awful. And she's kind of, I feel like she's the only one who's calling her these horrible things and saying these awful things about her. So it feels like she's more prejudiced against her. And, you know, because of Polly, she did lose her business. So I can understand why she's angry and bitter about it. And, you know, saying all these awful things. Because the rest of the town doesn't seem like they don't like Melissa. They seem like they do, and maybe that's what Jane has a problem with. Like, she feels like maybe she's been, you know, wronged by this pretty girl that everyone likes and feels sorry for because her husband, I mean, if you think about it, like, her husband was killed or died, like, in this tragic, weird, freakish accident thing, and she's got this young daughter who's got problems and issues to deal with, and, you know, she's on her own. She's trying her best to survive with her daughter, and then you've got the creepy doll on top of it. She's got a lot to deal with, this poor lady. And you could tell she's like just barely hanging on the bottom rung there. But yeah, so I think Jane is biased against her.
There's some really great imagery in these scenes when Scully and the sheriff go to Melissa's house and they're sort of looking around, and the image of the window frame being nailed shut I think is really good. I think that there's this idea that even if Melissa she doesn't quite know what's going on, but she knows that something bad is going on, but she knows it's not coming from outside, she knows it's coming from inside. She knows it's the doll, or she knows it's her daughter or her. I think at some point she sort of thinks that she's cursed because she's the one seeing the dead people before they're killed. And maybe she thinks that she herself is a witch. She's not sure what's going on. But I like how Melissa's impulse is to try to protect her daughter, but also to try and protect the community. Like, she tries to remove her daughter from any situation where the doll is obviously doing something. Yeah. And she also tries to not just to sort of like keep her and her daughter safe, but also to keep the community safe. So the nailing the window down from the inside, I think, is a really sort of good image there, a good sort of message to what's going on in Melissa's mind. And I think that the fact that Scully spots that, you know, the sheriff's like, oh, I wonder what she's trying to keep out or whatever, and Scully's like, actually she's trying to keep something in. Yeah. Maybe she was worried about something inside here. And the sheriff sort of looks at Scully like what? But he's quite open to having the paranormal be explained to him. I felt like he was quite relaxed when Scully was he seems a little bit clueless, but he's also not completely immune to the idea of paranormal forces.
Yeah, it makes me wonder what else is going on in this town. What has the sheriff seen before? I do, just quickly to go back to that previous scene where Melissa's talking to Buddy on the phone. It's like, she's like, please don't come here. Like, I can't tell you why. Just please don't come here. Like, my daughter is Satan and she has a Satan demon doll. Can you just listen to me and just not come here? Like, please stop. But it's interesting because it's like at the same time she's trying to keep everybody away and safe from this evil presence. It's almost like these, at least in the situation with these two men, with the butcher and the cop, they're almost even more attracted to her.
Yeah, so it's like the allure of a damsel in distress.
Right.
You know, they can be the heroes. I actually really didn't like Buddy. I don't think he should die.
No.
I felt bad about his death. And I guess to a certain extent, you try to take care of the people that you have feelings for. And he is trying to be nice. But he has an ulterior motive.
Oh, yeah.
And that was kind of creepy.
I
was like, Buddy, dude. Like, you should help her because you're the deputy of this town. You should help her because she's somebody who's in trouble. You shouldn't help her just because, like, you want her to be your woman. Do you know what I mean? When he was like, you know, I've always carried a torch for you. I was like, Buddy, now is not the time. Okay, this doll is about
Buddy. No.
Buddy. Like, this doll is about to lose its shit, and then it's gonna go and it's gonna kill somebody in this cafe or whatever. Like, you know, I mean, I just felt like Buddy. I was like, Buddy, no. Romance. Romance is the last thing on her mind. Is like the least thing that she's thinking about right now.
Yeah. And that was another fascinating difference in the original script. He was much, even less, if it's possible, he was less likable. And there was a reference from Bon Sant that Buddy was the mayor's son. Because in the script, Scully is like, why do you keep this guy around? He's obviously a jackass. Like, what even? And he's like, well, he's the mayor's son, and we just kind of have to put up with it. And Bon Sant kind of like tries to keep a short leash on him. He does a lot more in the script that didn't make it onto the screen. Like, he takes Melissa's purse that she leaves in the buggy when she runs out with Polly, and keeps it with him so that because he's trying to protect her. And so he actually steals evidence and keeps that with him. And then, you know, he kind of uses that to, like, you know, at the end when he comes to her house. And then he goes to, well, we'll get to it. I don't want to get ahead, but yeah, he does a few questionable things that are not becoming of a police officer of the law. Quite shady. But I thought that was interesting, and I kind of wish that they had mentioned that he was the mayor's son, because I feel like that made the character a little bit different for me. It kind of explained some necessary stuff, but I guess that got cut out. So we've got the next scene with Buddy and Melissa in the ice cream shop. And, you know, what do you do with a kid when you need to have a private conversation except distract them with ice cream? He's like, here, I want to profess my love. I want to profess my love to your mother. Have some ice cream, kid. Get over here. Like, that's how he deals with this child. Polly goes, she wants more cherries.
Polly is spoiled. Polly needs to be disciplined. I mean, she can have more cherries, maybe, but she needs to wait for them. She needs to say the word please. Does she say please at any point?
No. And this is where I really feel for Melissa, because I have a very demanding 4-year-old child. And, you know, I was like, okay, I get it. Like, I get it. You do not. And the last thing poor Melissa needs is another scene anywhere. And she's this poor woman, bless her heart, she's got this kid screaming about cherries, and she's got Buddy here saying, like, I want to get in your pants. And it's like, I don't know how she survives this town, this poor woman. Like, I would just run as far as I could, run away. But, you know, she loves her daughter, and her daughter is, like, all she's got from her dead husband, who she loved. And so I get that about her. It's like kind of like this deep character. And she's just dealing with so much on her plate, this poor woman. I feel so bad for her.
And presumably she knew Polly before the doll came along.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I don't think we're supposed to, and we're not supposed to know maybe at this point in the episode, but I think eventually we know that Polly isn't an evil child. Polly has some problems, but it's really the doll that's kind of bringing out that side of the girl, yeah. So presumably, I mean, obviously you can love your child even if your child is evil, but as we know from many horror movies and X-Files episodes, but I do think that obviously we have to give Melissa, like, you know, the benefit of the doubt. Like, Melissa she did know what a normal family was like before this doll was found.
Yes. So this evil doll came along and just basically ruined this poor woman's life, and she's trying to protect herself and everybody and just, like, keep everything okay. Like, this, she's just like, I just have to keep everything okay. Like, we just have to get through this next 5 minutes. It's just like...
It's a good metaphor for...
Yeah.
Stresses and strains of motherhood, really, isn't it? So.
I did find myself identifying with this quite a lot. This lady at the ice cream parlor has this long hair all the way down her back and this ponytail. Like, how does she not have this in a hairnet? How do people not complain nonstop? I mean, I've got long hair. It's not that long, but it's pretty long. And I shed all the time, even with a ponytail. And she's got this long-ass hair hanging down her back, and she's working in an ice cream shop, and people aren't complaining there's hair on their ice cream all the time. Like, she needs a hairnet.
That would solve this problem completely. She would never have been in any danger if she'd been wearing a hairnet.
Exactly.
I mean, the doll would have found some other way, but...
I mean, like, Polly's not happy. And this doll is going to make this woman pay for pissing off Polly.
Give me my cherries.
I want my cherries, bitch. So, yeah, you're going to pay.
I like how
not giving me my cherries.
The doll's like, let's have fun, which translates to, let's murder people. I want to play. I want to kill people.
Let's stab somebody in the eyeball. That sounds like fun.
Every time the doll said that, I actually laughed. Even though the first time I saw this episode, I wasn't laughing. I was like, oh my God, this is creepy. But this time round, I was like, let's have fun. And my husband was like, let's kill people. And we were laughing. We're really morbid laughing, but we were laughing.
you gotta laugh or cry. I don't know. But, yeah. Oh, this is where we get the New England hospitality with Scully and Bonsant. And they talk to Jane about Melissa and what happened. And she just goes off and says all these horrible, horrible things. Just terrible. And I liked in the script, there were a lot of details about Jane's house. And it was talking about how everything, like all these, like rusty, old, unused playthings out in the yard and like, you know, cutesy little signs around for like saying little kids or like wee ones here or whatever. And just like all these leftover things. It was like she kept her like preschool set up, but it was just all faded and old looking. It was really creepy. And I wish we could have gotten a little bit more of that in the...
Yeah, I don't remember much of that in the actual episode itself. That would have been kind of a cool thing to sort of emphasize more.
Yeah, it was sad and creepy, but I think that would have been atmospheric thing to add in and get it. And I mean, maybe they shot it and had to cut it for time, or you know, there's no telling what could have happened. But that could have been a fun set to decorate, I think. And then we've got Scully suggesting that the chief needs to question Melissa about this because clearly something is centered around her and this kid. Okay, the next scene at the ranger station really, I don't know. Did you feel like that scene was necessary at all? Because I get that it was important to show Melissa trying to escape and trying to get out of this town to save everybody. And if she could just get to this cabin away from the town, maybe things would be better for her. But then she sees, you know, the image in the rearview mirror or the rear window with Jane. And she's scared and she has to go back. She just...
Is she seeing
like,
Jane?
This whole scene was just...
Is she seeing Jane or is she seeing the ranger?
I thought it was Jane.
Oh, maybe
with the record in her neck.
See, the problem with the episode, one of the problems, the big problems, is that the doll seems to be killing people indiscriminately. Mm-hmm. And there's no way that Melissa or the little girl could have known that Jane was talking to Scully and bad-mouthing Melissa, calling her a whore.
But the doll sees everything.
But like, why does the doll care? Do you know what I mean? Like the doll, I think the doll's supposed to care what Polly cares about. Otherwise, the doll wouldn't have, like, injured somebody who refused to give her more cherries for her ice cream. You know, so I think there's this sort of, I think it makes sense that the doll would hurt anybody that Polly's annoyed at or pissed off by, and so some of this was kind of confusing to me. I was like, why is the doll now threatening this person, or why is the doll threatening that person? And I think the doll itself, where it comes from, you know, why it kills some people and not others, how it's linked to Polly. I understand we probably wouldn't get a full explanation just because of time constraints, in a whole episode. But I did feel like there could have been a little bit more explanation there. This doll just kind of comes in, creates havoc, and then kind of leaves, and then it sort of just seems like a narrative device, doesn't it? It just seems like an effective, like it's not really a plot. Do you know what I mean? It's just like a thing that you throw in to cause chaos and then take out again. And I felt like more could have been done with that. I felt like it could have been a slightly more clever. So I'm not sad to see Jane die, and the way that she died I thought was quite effective with the music and everything. But yeah, you're right. Like, I actually thought that the person in the window of the car when they were going to try to go to the cabin in the woods was actually the ranger that she was talking to. Mm-hmm. But maybe I just didn't look at it carefully enough. The fact that I was confused about it, though, means that...
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had that initial thought, too, but I remember... I think the reason why I remember it is because I was surprised. I was like, wait a second, I thought that was going to be the ranger, but it was Jane with the record in her neck saying, help me. So she just, like, goes up to this ring that she's, like, trying, which I guess I appreciate because it always annoys me in horror movies when they don't try to escape. So I guess I appreciate that, but it's kind of a pointless scene, really. We come back to Jane. She's listening to, okay, you're from the UK, and I've recently discovered that the name of this song is something different between the US and the UK. Is it Hokey Pokey or Hokey Cokey? How do you sing it?
So in the UK you sing Hokey Pokey.
Really?
Not
because
Hokey Pokey.
okay,
I'm pretty sure you do the Hokey Pokey. Yeah, it's Pokey.
Because I asked Kurt on our XCast chat, and he weighed in and said it's definitely Hokey Cokey. And also, Darren Mooney this is how I discovered the difference, because Darren Mooney said in his blog he called it the Hokey Cokey, and I was like, what? And so I asked about it, and Kurt was like, definitely Hokey Cokey, and he played the song, and it says, in the British version, it says Hokey Cokey. So this is fascinating, and I didn't get to, like, dig in and research down that rabbit hole.
I mean,
but
it's quite possible that little kids, when they first learn the song, don't really understand it. Not that it's understandable, but, like, it's quite possible they'd say Hokey Pokey because they get the words wrong, and then it is. You know?
It is on the closed captioning, because I watched with the closed captioning on. It says it's Pokey with a P on the American closed captioning.
Okay, so maybe it's the little kids don't know what Pokey means.
I don't know. It's weird. Yeah,
does
this
Pokey
is a
mean?
straight, like, Google it, because it's a thing. It's a real thing. This song is different. But not to digress or anything, I just thought that was fascinating, and now I've, like, got to delve into this more. But we're here to talk about the X-Files, not the Hokey Pokey Cokey. So can you imagine that song being the last thing you ever hear before you die?
She's going to go down to hell, and then she's going to be played on repeat down there.
It's not funny, but it is.
I mean,
evil woman.
It's a pretty horrifying scene because
it is.
But that is what the X-Files does so well. It takes the old music, right, which is relatively innocent, right? A song that you heard as a kid, or an old love song. In the case of what's the one with the incestuous family?
The Twilight. Yeah,
Twilight song. You know, like
Twilight Time.
Twilight Time. That's it. Or Downtown, that was recently played in the new series. You know, they take this old sort of innocent song that people know, that has some joy attached to it, and they make it really ugly, that they twist it on its head and they turn it around, they turn it inside out, and they make it a dark, horrible anthem of death. And then you're like, oh, I can never look at this song the same way again.
Who knew the Hokey Pokey could be an anthem of death?
It was in there. It was hidden. We just didn't see it, but it was there.
Next up, we have Scully in the tub, taking a bubble bath on her vacation with her nice classical music, and so relaxing with the candles, and this just looks glorious. And then the phone rings, and she's like, fuck this, and just kicks the door shut. Like, don't we all just want to do that? But then, you know, and did you notice the title of the book that she's reading?
It's like something about
affirmations for women who do too much.
Do too much, yeah. Oh, bless you, Scully.
I love it. I know, sweet Scully. So clearly she needs that bubble bath.
She does like her baths.
She does.
And for once, she's not interrupted by someone trying to kill her while she runs a bath.
True.
This time she actually gets in the bath and has one.
Yeah, somebody killing somebody else with a record and the hokey pokey. And then, so she finally answers the phone. Let's see. So Mulder calls Scully while she's at the latest crime scene. So that call that she gets is, you know, saying that Jane's dead. And this was in the script. Buddy finds Jane because he goes to check on her. That's one thing the sheriff does, is he's like, well, he's at least good with the old people, so we'll send him over there to see if we can get any more information out of this lady. So he goes over to check on her. He finds her dead, and he's like, never mind. And then he just leaves and locks up the door, and he radios in that she's probably taking a nap. Because she was one of the victims at the grocery store also that morning in the script. Because I think in the actual episode that aired, she's on the way out when Polly and Melissa are on the way in, so she misses the whole episode with the clawing the eyes and all that. She's not there, but in the script she was, and so she's like all beaten up, and she's one of, which you touched on because it makes sense. If having her in that grocery store, and she was one of the ones, she was like the worst one that like took most of like the biggest beating other, and then the butcher guy actually did not stab himself. He got stopped. Melissa stopped him from doing it.
I guess the script is just placing a bigger focus on Buddy, and maybe Chris Carter didn't want Buddy to be as much of a focus.
Yeah.
So that's why he basically made him a smaller character with less kind of backstory.
Yeah. But he finds Jane's body and then just leaves. And he's like, nope, she's asleep. It's like, she just leaves her there dead.
You're a bad policeman.
Right? He's terrible. Also, side note, in the script, and I don't know, did you know that the doll's name was Chinga? That's the actual name of the doll. They call her Chinga in the script, but I don't think they ever did in the episode.
No.
Yeah, the doll's name is Chinga.
Did they mention the word Chinga? Did anybody say Chinga at any point?
No.
See, I thought Chinga, because I just hadn't really realised, I thought Chinga was some sort of term for something that was possessed. Like,
see, that's what I thought too. But in Spanish, it's fuck. So they had to change the name of the episode. Standards and practices in, I think, the UK made them change the episode title to Bung Honey. Which
that sounds even more dodgy.
Right?
That sounds like a euphemism for something.
Yeah.
So they changed it back to Chinga?
I don't know. What do they call it in the UK?
Chinga.
Same Chinga. So what even? So the doll's name was Chinga.
I wonder what they call it in Spanish. Has anybody tried to watch this episode in Spain? Call out to the X-Cast.
No.
Anyone who's an X-Files fan.
X-Cast friends.
Yeah, X-Cast fans. Listeners.
What do they call this in Spanish?
We're in Spain right now. Please put the episode on and tell us what it's called.
Yeah, and the doll itself, I don't think this was not in the episode. You see kind of like the shadowy doll figure, but the doll in the script was life-size. It manifested as this life-size doll, and you saw the actual doll like making people do these things. So like the doll was life-size, and for example, in the beginning with the butcher, is it Dave? Dave the butcher?
Yes, Dave.
He had, you saw the doll standing there, and I can't remember if it was actually doing anything or not, but like there was this life-size doll that actually made footprints, and that's what Buddy noticed, was the footprints. But I guess he thought they were Polly's or Melissa's footprints, and he was trying to protect Melissa because they were these life-size women's shoe footprints, but they were made by the doll. So the doll actually manifested as this life-size thing.
I don't think that would have worked.
Mm-mm.
No.
Yeah.
I think also a life-size doll would have been really noticeable. Everyone would have been like,
yeah,
where did Polly get that ridiculously huge doll from?
Well, she had the doll that she was holding.
Oh,
so it
the
was the same,
doll
but it was
another thing. Like
it was like separate.
Oh, okay. I thought she was walking
like
around with
weird...
a life-size doll. I was
no,
like, how would
it's
she
like
even
this
carry
weird...
that? She's such a small child.
She had like the regular sized doll that she had with her, but then when all these things started happening, the characters would see this life size. She would like turn into this life size entity thing.
I'm glad they didn't do that too much, because that would have been also, I think that would have been kind of comical.
Yeah.
Sort of giant big doll moving forward and stabbing somebody jerkily.
Yes.
I think it's better that the people do it to themselves. I think that's creepier, actually.
Yeah. So we've got Polly napping, and Melissa creeps up and tries to take the doll away, but she wakes up. The doll wakes up, not Polly.
Yeah, and she's sleeping to Hokey Cokey music.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I had that same record player, by the way. But I did not listen to the Hokey Pokey Cokey. I listened to Davy Crockett's. So it's not like Melissa's not trying. Like, she's really trying. She's, like, doing everything she can to get rid of this demon doll. But she's also terrified of it. And I would be too, rightfully so. She's validated in this fear. Oh, and then we've got Scully and Bonsant eating the lobster. The giant Jules Verne lobster.
I love how they're talking about the case, and while they're doing that, the sheriff is like ripping bits off the lobster, like in the most graphic way, and Scully's like, what do I do with this thing? I love how her reaction to it, she was like shocked when they gave her this huge thing, and the sheriff's just like, dig in with his hands.
Apparently that lobster was shipped in from Maine or somewhere. They shipped this giant lobster across the entire continent. It's a real lobster.
Wow.
Yeah. Larry Musser, Kurt and Paige got to do an interview with him, and he talks about this lobster, and you know, he's like, I tried not to eat it too much because it's real lobster, and it was sitting out for like 6 hours while we were filming this. I can't imagine how much that would have smelled, but which is a shame because it looks like a gigantic, delicious lobster. If you like that kind of thing, but if you get a chance to listen to that interview, it's really good, really fantastic interview. Go check that out with the X-Cast, and I really like their rapport in this scene. They seem like they're getting along nicely, and it's nice to be able to see Scully working with local law enforcement in a productive way.
Yeah, and it's nice that, like, for a change, Scully's explaining the paranormal to somebody else rather than it being explained to her. And I love how tentative she is about it. Well, there might be other explanations. Like, she's really sort of... Do you know what I mean? And throughout all of this, obviously, Mulder's continuing to call her because Mulder doesn't have a life without Scully. It's obviously he's completely, utterly bored. But I love how his explanations are sort of much more logical and practical. Like, maybe it's dancing sickness, which... I mean, because I have read up on dancing sickness, so I was like, oh my god, they mentioned dancing sickness. I was really excited. But, like, the fact that he's trying to come up with, like, medical reasons or scientific reasons, and she keeps rebuffing them. So it's basically a reverse of War of the Coprages, really, isn't it?
I do like that it shows how far she's come with Mulder in the X-Files, that he's really, you know, gotten into her head, and this is kind of how she's thinking now. I appreciate that. But she's still self-conscious about it, you know. So Buddy, he comes to Melissa's house, and he's sitting there in this house, and he calls Polly a brat. Like, I can't say that I blame this doll for going after him.
He's a creep, really, isn't he? Like, I mean, one of the first things he does is reproach her, and then he kind of turns on her, doesn't he? He's like, I'm taking you guys in, and he obviously doesn't care about Polly. He wants Melissa, but Polly just comes with Melissa, so he has to kind of put up with her. You know, I mean, you kind of feel that already because he tried to basically shut Polly up with ice cream, you know, while he could make a pass at her mom. So, I don't know. I think Buddy's a bit of an idiot. I don't mourn his loss. I don't mourn his death. But I do think the bit after that where Melissa's frantically trying to make popcorn while Polly's like, where's my popcorn? Man. I was like, woman, just use the microwave, it's quicker. Microwave that. Before the doll loses its mind, it kills you because you're too slow with the popcorn.
That was so scary. And she's just like sitting there staring at this dead body on her floor and making this popcorn. So the scene with Scully on the boat with this old guy, he gives us this explanation about how Polly got the doll and what happened to Polly's dad, Melissa's husband, how he got killed, which I liked because that was not in the script. There was never any explanation about, where the doll had come from originally. So at least we get that this is some random creepy doll and causes havoc on this poor woman's life and family. But there's never any explanation as to why the doll would want to just immediately kill the guy who pulled her out of the water.
And we're supposed to think that the doll is inspiring people to do these things to themselves. And I just don't think it's physically possible to get a giant fish hook like that, or a giant hook like that through your whole head. And you would die before you did that. But also, it's just, you need a lot of,
be pinned up to where, it didn't even look like his feet were touching the ground anymore. How is that even...
a human being can do that to themselves.
No. So and how was the old guy who was on the boat with him not accused of doing this?
Yeah, exactly. That'd be the first person you would accuse of murder, right? The person who's with him. There's no one else on the boat except him, the guy, and a doll. I know what it is. It's got to be the doll.
I mean, and if he had this suspicion, he's like, you hear things with the water and the this and the that. And if he had this creepy suspicion about the doll, why did he still give the doll to Polly? Why not just throw it back in the water?
Or the doll had already been given to Polly by that point. And the father was out fishing again. And then...
Oh. Yeah. That makes sense, because I missed that.
I think you're supposed to think the doll's feeding off Polly's possessiveness of her mother as well. So maybe Polly didn't really want her dad around because that was the attention, attention is diverted from her to her father by, from her mother. Melissa's going to be thinking about her husband and Polly, and Polly wanted her mother all to herself. I don't know. I mean, it's the kind of thing that maybe a little kid might irrationally think at some point. Little kids can be quite focused on one parent over another. It's quite normal.
Right.
But they don't all have killer dolls, so... But yeah, you're right. I'm just reading into this. The fact that I have to read into it and it's not kind of explained to you is a problem with the episode.
That makes even less sense about Jane then, because if she was feeling, I feel like that would have made it a lot stronger if that was the case, that it was just this girl being possessive over her mom and not wanting her mom to be with any other, wanting her to herself. But then Jane, you throw that into the mix and it just throws the whole thing off.
Well, because why else would Dave the Butcher die? Or Buddy.
Yeah.
I mean, Buddy, but he's insulting and he's about to... He's sort of threatening them. But Dave the Butcher... I mean, he comes out and he looks at Melissa, and I think that's when Polly notices. And I think you're supposed to think that the doll kills Dave the Butcher because Dave the Butcher has a thing for Melissa, and the doll beats everyone else up in the town because everyone in the town is judging Melissa. So it's really... And then also the doll hurts the ice cream lady because she won't get cherries for Polly.
Yeah, it doesn't...
But I think, Polly can't necessarily know that all these people hate her mother. But,
I know.
Do you know what I mean? So it's it is a little bit strange. Do you know what I mean? That's why I think it's
not clear.
Yeah.
But at least we do get that explanation about where this doll originated. At least somewhat. I mean, we don't know where it came from, but it was just in the water.
But, okay, so here's my big problem is, if you found a dirty doll, in the water, would you bring it back to your child?
Hell no.
I mean,
no way. It'd go back in the water.
I guess you're supposed to think they really have no money. And so that's why he's like, oh, I found a present for my daughter in the water. But wouldn't you... I mean, I guess they clean it up and everything, but still... I don't know, I just don't think... People don't go fishing rubbish out of water, do they? And then sort of saying... I'm going to wrap this up as a birthday gift for my child. I mean, that also didn't make much sense to me. It's supposed to be folklorish, I suppose, or mythical, kind of a found gift that actually is cursed.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of weird.
I'm with you. It's especially well, I mean, if it was me, that doll I would immediately burn it and salt the earth around it, but whatever. Yeah, and then Scully asks Mulder about creepy dolls. Oh, and then, while Melissa's making this popcorn, she turns around and sees herself in the window, which is especially frightening. So now the stakes are really high at this point. She's got to do something or she's goner next. Scully and Bonsant come in and they see Melissa trying to light this house on fire, but then the matches don't work, and because the doll blows them out, which is super creepy. This whole sequence here is like really intense and scary, I thought.
Yeah, and really sad for Melissa as well. She's so desperate that she's willing to set fire to the house, like with her and her daughter inside. And you do feel really sad for her at that point, like that she's obviously sort of really panicking. And she's obviously nailed up the door and she's nailed up all the windows and she's trying to solve the problem in the only way that she knows how now, which is this desperate measure. So I actually really felt for her. I was like, oh, Melissa, it's really sad. I thought it was interesting that Polly's resolve, and actually at this point Polly starts acting like a proper little child, doesn't she? Because she starts getting scared. And she's crying, and she looks like a normal kid, like how a normal kid would react. I say normal as in not like a psycho child like she was before. But Polly's resolve sort of falters when she sees her mother get hurt. And I think that was really interesting. I thought that she's willing to accept all manner of strange things happening. And she's pretty much willing to accept anybody dying, but not her own mother. And the doll went too far this time. Like, she really seems very disturbed at the idea of her mother, like, basically hurting herself. So I think that's kind of where, she draws the line. Well done, Polly. You let everyone else die, but...
not Mommy.
Not Mommy.
Because up until this point, Melissa has been unaffected wherever she goes by this phenomenon. So it's Scully is the one who makes the connection that this doll is causing this freaky stuff to happen, and she's like, give me the doll, just give me the doll, give me the doll, give me the doll. I mean, if it was me, I'd ask maybe like once and then just like shove that kid away. Sorry, kid, give me the doll. This is going away. But yeah, Scully's the one that microwaves the doll. But in the script, it was actually Polly who did it, and it was not a hammer. But Melissa figured it out, and she's the one who actually put her foot down. And because she got Buddy's gun and had his gun, and put it to her head and was like, "I'm going to do this. I can't live like this anymore, kid. And you got to do something about your doll now, because I'm not going to live like this anymore."
Mommy's had
enough.
That was,
Mommy's had enough. It's me or the doll. Like, literally, she's like, it is me or the doll. You have to choose. And so the kid went and put the doll in the microwave and microwaved her to death. Which, I don't know. I don't know if I like that better or just differently. I think both are effective, but...
I think it's good to have Scully do something.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what's she there for?
I like that she has an agency.
Yeah, but I think it would be nice if Polly had actually voluntarily given Scully the doll. If she'd, like, when the door was broken down or whatever, if she'd run to Polly and handed it... if Polly had run to Scully and handed her the doll. But, like, take it from me, it's hurting my mummy. But, yeah, but I think it's a bit too much to expect Polly to understand the doll is actually doing something. I mean, maybe Polly does know, but at the very end, Polly just seems really confused, like a really confused child. And then when the doll's taken away from her, she looks very much like a normal kid again. And she's concerned about her mum, and so you...
Do you think that because they allude to autism in the episode? Or do you think that the doll was causing her to be like that? Like, was she possessed the whole time that she had the doll, and that's why she was like that? And that
I think that the autism is used as an explanation for her behaviour at the nursery, and her behaviour at the nursery is influenced by the doll. So there's no way of knowing if she actually has autism, right? I mean, they don't say she's diagnosed with autism before the doll, do they?
No, it's not clear.
No, I mean, it's because of the incident at the nursery where she does something, or she gets.
They said she was having a fit. She was having an uncontrollable fit.
Yeah, but then there's the implication that Jane somehow ends up on the floor having been punched, and obviously Polly couldn't do that. It's the doll that does that. Right. So.
Yeah.
I think we're supposed to think that that's why everybody says she's autistic. Or because of her behaviour, but I think her behaviour is influenced by the doll. I guess I just felt like before the doll came along, Melissa and Polly, even if Polly was autistic or she, had some sort of behavioural issues, that she really relatively wasn't like sort of normal child. I mean, there's a reason why Melissa loves her child, and it's not just the love a mother has for some demonic child. I think you're supposed to think that Polly was a sweet, wonderful little girl before this doll came along, and that's what Melissa can remember. And that things have steadily got worse since the doll arrived. So I don't think it's supposed to be that Melissa loves her daughter no matter what. It's that she loves her daughter because she knows that this isn't really her daughter. But I think at the end with Polly crying because Melissa's trying to burn down the house, and then very, very upset because her mother's basically hitting herself in the head with a hammer. I think you start to see the real Polly. You start to see that actually she's just a little kid, and this whole thing is scaring her, and that she doesn't want her mother to injure herself, and that she's actually frightened. Whereas before she's got this kind of otherworldly kind of sort of behaviour, hasn't she? You know how little kids in horror movies have this sort of like, I'm too young to really know what's going on, but I have this knowing look in my eye, like I understand all the evil in the world, and you're like, shit. This child is cleverer than I thought it was.
I had a kid in my class like that one time. That was freaky. Not kidding. But I think, because isn't it the first time that we see Polly out, or not Polly, the doll. We see the doll, once Scully takes it out of Polly's hands, because the whole episode she's got it like right up next to her the whole time. She's never, like, without the doll, like, really close to her. And then, when Melissa starts hitting herself with the hammer, she kind of lets the doll fall away a little bit.
Yeah.
And then once Scully gets it away from her, it's like she changes.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if it's, like, the contact with the doll that's making her act this way.
Yeah, definitely.
That it's, yeah. After this, we come Scully coming back to the office, and Mulder's got his pencil sharpened, and Scully asks about the "I Want to Believe" poster. I think she wants to send it to Chief Von Sant, and Mulder goes, "It's amazing what I can accomplish without incessant meddling." It's like, sure, Mulder. And then we've got the pencils in the ceiling. Classic Mulder.
And that starts out something that goes on beyond this episode, doesn't it? Because the pencils appear numerous times.
Yeah.
Don't they? In episodes after this, like, people look up at Mulder's ceiling and there's all these pencils sticking up there.
They're still there.
Because that happened during this episode. I think it's funny that he's so bored over a weekend. I'm thinking, do they spend all their weekends together? They must, which means they must spend, like, their entire working week together and their weekends. Probably most of their evenings. They're shown eating together. How are these guys not a married couple already?
I know. And then we've got, for the final scene, we see another random fisherman pulling this doll. It's all burned and charred and scarred and destroyed out of the water again. And the Did you hear the Mark Snow's music at the very end? It was the hokey pokey creepy version.
Yeah.
The X-Files,
so cool.
the X-Files remix, the hokey pokey.
The fisherman pulls this doll out and then doesn't immediately throw it back in the water. I'm like, it looks even worse now. It's burnt. It's a burnt creepy doll, whereas before it was just a doll.
There's no hair.
Doll. And it's like, oh, hey, let me take a look at this really creepy thing. I pull out, I'll be like, right back in the water. Right back in the water.
Yeah. Nope.
Splash.
Yeah, I did get to see the actual prop from the X-Files Preservation Society. Jim, he had it at X-Fest in the case. And that was definitely one that I did not ask to touch. But I think Larry Musser got it out for him, and he had his picture with it.
I think the scary thing about the prop is that its whole face is burnt, right? But
yes.
its eyes are completely untouched. There's blue piercing eyes. So somebody must have deliberately burnt the face, like some prop guy, and then been like, we're going to leave the eyes. I'm like, oh, it's so creepy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've got a picture of it in the X-Files basement group, so you guys can go look in that. I'm sure you can find other pictures online, but yeah, it was creepy seeing it in real life. I was glad that it was in the case. I'm not gonna lie.
I am quite concerned about how the doll ended up back in the water. Is this how this town in Maine are doing their rubbish disposal? Is by throwing it in the water? Like, I feel like they burnt the doll and then someone threw it back in the water, or did they? What happened? How did it end up back
Maybe
there?
it walked there by itself, Clara.
Maybe it walked there. Oh, opened up the little microwave door and was like, peace out, guys. See you later. Let's have fun.
Limped out. With its like charred, stubby arm.
I want to play.
I want to play.
Go for a swim.
Oh, man. Let's go to the mailbag and see what everybody's got going on. So we've got Karen McKenna, who is the same girl who let me have a look at the script. Thank you, Karen. She posted this comment, and it's a little bit long. Sorry if I cut anything out that's important, Karen. But she says, a lot's been said over the years about Carter's decision to rewrite King's original script and whether or not this was a good idea. I just reread the original draft not too long ago and have been thinking about where I stand on this. There are definitely things I like and dislike about the original version versus Carter's rewrite, but in the end I do agree that the rewrite was for the best, especially as King's original story had some pacing issues, and Mulder and Scully definitely felt a bit off, if not just plain out of character. I think Scully's story arc was much stronger in the rewrite, really embracing the theme of her trying to take a vacation and getting out of her own head for a bit. She seemed to abandon both her vacation and her skepticism way too easily in the original version, and I feel like the rewrite really brought her back to the Scully we know and love, while still having her flirt with her believer side. But honestly, I find both versions to be pretty fascinating, even if neither perhaps entirely lived up to its potential. It's probably the biggest difference I've seen between a first and final draft of a script so far, while still keeping the same overall plot, characters, and location. Each version shows off its writer's strengths, even if the two versions didn't merge perfectly in the end. So I think we kind of touched on a few of those points about how they merged the ideas, and there were several points in the script, that they kept the exact phrasing and dialogue that was used. One thing I did notice that I really appreciated in Stephen King's script was like the local colloquialisms that they used, and a couple of those came through, but specifically like how the sheriff keeps saying "yeah,"
yeah, and he wasn't the only one to do that. I think somebody else.
No, the guy on the boat.
The guy on the boat. Oh yeah, I said the guy on the boat.
And maybe a few other people. Yeah, so I thought that was a really nice touch to make it really authentic. And, there were a few other little words and phrases that I picked up in the script that really kind of made it feel local, which I appreciated. Let's see. Our great and wonderful leader, Mr. Black, says, this has always felt like one of the X-Files lost opportunities for me. And I can hear him saying this. I'm going to do, Tony, sorry, I'm going to butcher your accent here. A Stephen King script set in Maine? How did this not end up awesome? It's all she wrote in the end. It's like an inverse war of the corporages, with Scully put stumbling into weirdness while Mulder chills with pencils. But yeah, silly, gory, and occasionally jump scary. But The Conjuring did this better 20 years down the line. So yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of potential in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it quite lived up to its potential. Which is
do you
kind
think
of
that's
what
because
a lot of people are saying.
Okay, do you think if you didn't know who wrote this episode, if you didn't know that it was Stephen King, if his name was not attached to it, would you still feel the same way about this episode?
No, I don't think so. No, I think I agree with you. I think it's the fact that it's linked to Stephen King. So you start looking for sort of themes that you would expect to see in a Stephen King story. It does feel very much like a short story to me, like a little story that you would read in an anthology. And so in a way, yeah, I was expecting it to be darker, maybe, in a way. Yeah, like it doesn't meld comedy and horror very well. For some reason, there's something disjointed there, I think. But yeah, you're right. A lot of it is to do with the fact that I associate Stephen King with a particular genre, a particular type of story, particular motifs in his stories, and so you're looking out for that. When I first watched this, when I was younger, I didn't know Stephen King had written it, and so I think I didn't have that feeling of disjointedness. I really thought it was a reverse telling of War of the Coprages, actually, with Mulder calling up and Mulder giving the rational scientific explanations and Scully arguing the paranormal point of view, and which is, they're playing almost exactly the opposite positions as they were in that episode. So I think that's what I linked it to more when I was younger, rather than Stephen King. But this time round, I was really oh yeah, I can see this, but also there's an element here which doesn't really work. Yeah, so
yeah, right, yeah. And then we've got Cathy G. says, hi Cathy, the phone calls between Mulder and Scully elevate this episode for me. The case is not particularly compelling and Melissa and Polly are hard to take, but those phone calls are pure magic. Such a great showcase for the actors' comedic abilities. Yeah, I'm with you, Cathy. And then we've also got a couple of really good comments from Wendy and Chandru, but they're pretty extensive. But if you want to read those, and I encourage you to, because they're really good, we can go to the X-Files basement group on Facebook. We have some really good discussions over there, so yeah, you definitely want to check that out. But we're running a little bit low on time here, so I'll wrap things up. It's always fun talking with Clara. We always
end up going over time.
Oh yeah. It's worth it though, absolutely. So, but I think we'll wrap things up there. But Clara, thank you a million times for hanging out with me to talk about this creep-tastic episode. Where can we find you online?
So you can find me on Twitter at ClaraJeanMC. You can find my podcast, The Tales We Tell, which is a podcast exploring women and gender in film, television, and fiction. You can find us at The Tales Podcast. And I'm still editing an episode. I'm in the middle of moving house, so it's been a long couple of months. So I haven't really put anything out for the last 2 months. Shameful. But I will hopefully be putting out an episode at the end of this month, beginning of October. So look out for that. It's going to be quite epic.
Yeah, looking forward to it. If you guys have not heard Clara's podcast, it's absolutely fantastic. It's all about, women in media and these fantastic female characters. And I've been on there a couple of times, having some fun chats. And definitely look forward to more of that, Clara, because it's a really, really good podcast. So enjoy listening to it and hanging out with you and chatting. We go much longer on that podcast than we do here, but it's worth it. Yeah, it's good talk. So you can find me, Sarah L. Blair, SarahLBlair on Twitter, mostly on Twitter. Sometimes on Instagram at author.sarah.blair. But yeah, so we hope you will join us again soon for our next episode of the X-Cast. And until then, trust no one.
The X-Cast, an X-Files podcast, is produced and hosted by Tony Black, alongside a dedicated team of podcasters and X-Files fans. You can find the show on Twitter at the X_cast, on Facebook by typing in the X-Cast, or inside our group, the X-Files Basement, an X-Cast podcast fan group, plus on Instagram by typing in the XFcast. If you're a fan of the show, why not support us on Patreon? Exclusive bonus episodes, early access to new episodes, plus become part of our X-Cast community in the Patreon department. To see our monthly subscription options, just head to patreon.com/the Xcast. That's patreon.com/the Xcast. We'd love to see you join our Patreon community. We're also part of the We Made This podcast network at We Made This Pod on Twitter and We Made This on Facebook. You can find a range of shows on TV, film, music and popular culture in general on the network. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.